Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk Podcast. I'm Carla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk. Welcome back to the Mental Perk. We're excited to have Jenna Ryan. She's an entrepreneur, an online influencer, and a Dallas real estate agent. Jenna is also well known due to her participation in the January 6th protests back in 2020. Due to her online activity and participation in the January 6th activities, she experienced a lot of cancel culture and social media harassment. And so we welcome Jenna today to kind of tell us about her journey, what she's doing now, how she's recovered from that. And through her challenges, Jenna is thriving and finding her way back from very traumatic events. Welcome, Jenna.
Hi. How are y'all doing?
Yeah. Hey, we're so glad to have you. I know that this is such a big topic, and we've just been through a really huge history-changing election this past week.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and I
change.
think it's interesting just all the changes that have happened in 4 years,
right.
You know, and so I know that you've also experienced a lot of changes in the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about you. What do you do? What are you about? What do you do as you're recovering from all of this and really working to get your career back on track after going through such a traumatic event?
Thank you for asking. Okay, that's a lot. What do? You just put one foot in front of the other. I found myself, like you say, canceled from society after not even really realizing I was a part of what I was about to be a part of. And it was I have a lot of unresolved things that are working themselves out now, still in the political sphere. And it's just fast. Like right now is incredible for me because the person I was protesting for is now in power. Mm-hmm. And so he's going and we're getting pardons and we're getting all sorts of things done for us that would have never happened. So I have a lot of joy. I mean, not joy per se, but it's just like that feeling of just injustice for me in my life.
I like how you say injustice for you, but not revenge, because your whole motive isn't revenge. Your
correct
motive is to try to get people to hear your side of the story.
That's very true. I don't really want revenge. That's not a very healthy way to look at things.
But I think people look at it that way.
They do.
Yeah, or they're fearful that people that participated in those things are going to come back and want revenge.
Yes, and that's interesting because that is something that's on the top of my mind. It's kind of still processing, but I definitely don't want I want everything to be on the up and up. Mm-hmm. Like I said, there's no healing without coming to conscious. Mm-hmm. I would like everything that was incorrect to be corrected.
Transparency.
Correct.
I think it'd be really interesting to go back to your frame of mind at that time, because I feel like you, just from reading some of the stuff that you wrote or posted at that time, you were going there because you were passionate about your candidate and you wanted to support him because you thought he was wrongly put in the situation where he didn't win.
Well, I don't want to offend any of your listeners because I just want everybody to know that I'm not, somebody who looks down on anyone for their views. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe as I believe, I'm fine. I have all kinds of friends of every culture, every race, every sexual orientation. I'm not judging anyone here.
Exactly.
And it's important that I get the same respect back, hopefully from the audience. I hope that you guys can see me as a human being with rights and rights to feel the way I feel. And so I was not down there for Trump. Okay. None of us were. We weren't even carrying Trump flags per se. Now, we were there to support Trump.
And there were some people that were there specifically.
It's hard. I'm trying to kind of give it's not necessarily what you're going to see on the news. Mm-hmm. Just our feeling was we were so hurt by what happened. We love Trump and we had the 45 hats on. You could buy them there. But most of us were there because of America. We were there to stand up for our free speech. We were there to stand up for our First Amendment rights, to tell these people in Congress, no more. We know what's going on in there. We know there's corruption. We saw what happened, what we saw happen. Not the whole world didn't get to see it because it wasn't transparent. So we saw, and what we saw, we were not happy with. So that's why we were there. And so as far as Trump goes, in going through what I went through and being attacked by the media, that's when I started just loving him even more. Like,
was it his resilience? Was it his commitment? What was it that?
Well, 2016, when I saw him midnight before the election happened and he won, just watching how hard he worked, I was just like, okay. So that really boosted me. For the 4 years he was in office, I was just, if I needed a good motivational speech, I would just remember him, how hard he worked. And that's about it, you know, and I just thought everything's taken care of. But then I watched, and things were very concerning. And so, but by that time, because in his cabinet and the people that he had around him were so, we had COVID, and we had people like Ray. I don't even know the stories because I didn't really pay that close attention. I just knew that there was a lot of corruption in his cabinet. And so we were like, we didn't know anything. We were just like, dude, whatever the case may be, Trump has asked us to go down there. We're going down there. We saw it wasn't right. We're not happy. And here's how we feel. But then after it all started snowballing and the gaslighting of the media and the censorship started occurring, then I started getting all this hatred, this extreme hatred. It's not there anymore. Maybe it's brewing. I don't know. We just had the election a couple days ago. But the hatred that I received, and that's whenever I started, well, I still was, you know, you get disoriented.
But I think we have to go back to the fact that when you were there, your intention was never for violence.
Oh.
It was never for
just to exercise your freedom of
destruction.
speech.
You were trying to exercise your freedom of speech from what you've told us. And again, I want the audience to know that this is Jenna's story. This is her perspective. Right. No one is trying to say one thing or another, but this is her perspective and her story told from her perspective.
Well, and I think it's important for all of our listeners to understand that freedom of speech
applies
goes
to
every
everybody.
direction.
Correct.
True. So, you know, her story is how she feels that
Yes.
things were perceived. And the fact that we're living in a world now that we feel like we cannot exercise our First Amendment right without persecution. Mm-hmm. When you see a lot of other different organizations doing it and the same results don't happen, I think that's where you get the hostility.
And one thing that supports what's being said here is the fact that, like, on this election, there were far few people putting signs in front of their homes for the
Correct.
very reason of the persecution or the inability to say your opinion. Right?
The reason that Trump won with the tsunami is because everybody saw, mm-hmm. people were seeing, people are waking up and going, wait a minute, if it could happen to her or him, what could happen to me? Mm-hmm. So it's truly an American movement, and mm-hmm. everybody knows we have to have free speech. And right now they've got protests going on right now. The Democrats are protesting. I would be furious if I saw anyone persecuted or mistreated because of their beliefs. Mm-hmm. Automatic no, and 100%. We would automatically want to call that out because no matter what side you're on, freedom of speech is an inalienable right of our First Amendment and our Constitution, and we all need to stand up together for that right.
We don't have to like what people say, but they have a right to say it as long as it's without violence.
Correct.
And without, persecution, right? People should have the right to say what they want to say. And
right.
When you went to the Capitol that day, your goal was freedom of speech.
Absolutely. I didn't even think. Now, I will tell you that there's also a part that says in the Declaration of Independence that it is if you have corruption and you have a government that has gone rogue, it is not only your right, but it's your duty to go and do something about it. Afterwards, the way it was positioned was like we were the bad guys, but we were actually the people that were on the front lines for our constitutional rights. So we're the opposite of how we were portrayed in the media. And so that's really important.
And I think it's important to realize that there were people there who had intention to do bad things and did do bad things. There were many bad things done that day, but not everyone who went there that day had bad intentions.
But you're gonna get bad apples.
No. Wait, I got one for you.
Okay.
So have you seen? Y'all don't know all the information yet, but it will be coming out.
Okay.
So there were 120 federal, feds in the crowd dressed as Trump supporters. So the people, they what do you call it, antagonized. They incited violence. So we have videos showing police officers letting people in, police officers giving Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman, a guided tour. I mean, we've got all this video. We've got the footage. We've got Nancy Pelosi on camera saying, it's my fault, da-da-da. I mean, they didn't. There's just so many things. It's all going to come out, and we're going to get that vindication there. But the people that I was around were not violent. Nobody had it. To my knowledge, no one had a gun. Now, I mean, I could go on for days.
Yeah.
Nobody had weapons. We had our cell phones. It was a selfie insurrection, okay? Nobody had guns. Now, my girlfriend, she got charged with 7 felonies. She's an eyelash technician in Beverly Hills. She's just so fun. She's just da-da-da-da-da. She's standing on the window going da-da-da-da-da. 7 felonies because she held a megaphone. That's like an upward departure. Or if you talk to someone else, or if you saw a fight, that's a felony. Mm-hmm. If you saw someone else fighting, thank God I didn't see any fights. That's why I just got a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
If you saw someone fighting, if you saw someone damaging property, even just saw it, they treated it like a gang. Or it's a lot.
You collaborated or you were a part of it because you either videoed it or whatever it was.
Conspiracy. And the thing is that's bullcrap. That would be like if you're at the sporting goods store, and there was a riot in there and you're standing there
watching it or filming it,
or even if
you're guilty.
But that happens all the time. You see it on TV. You see these crimes happening and people are standing there videoing them.
7 felonies. Yeah. She's looking at 30 years in prison. She is a, 56-year-old lady. Sorry, but she's a beautiful person. She's got, it's hard enough to live as it is in Beverly Hills.
Right.
Just the agony. So she's been on house arrest. Thank the Lord. She got out of prison for a bit and she's on house arrest. And, she's just somebody who loves America, loves Trump. That's how, just a complete wonderful person. Like the kind of people you would want in your life are the people that were part of January 6th. And we were demonized. And it's just interesting to watch the truth come out because it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And so you cannot keep that stuff down. They silenced us. They wouldn't let us speak. They just gave one side of the story. They called us all these names and they portrayed us, demonized us in effort to persuade other people to hate us and to retain power. Because the power is in the people. The power is in the people. So your beliefs run the country. So it was very important that you perceive the January 6th people and Trump as a very evil person. And that's just not the truth.
And I think, coming from the perspective of people sitting there that day and watching it on television, it was so disheartening to see our Capitol be destroyed that way.
Correct.
And to see, people running for their lives and to see things being threatened and to see history, many things, statues and things being destroyed. And so I think that didn't help the situation.
Great that you mentioned that. So let's start with the whole year before that with the BLM.
100%. And again, that I know where you're going with that, and I think you're right. We've been allowing the destruction.
But that's not it. That's not all I have to say. That's just one piece of it. So if we take that into account, they spray painted the White House, they burned down things. We were freaking out. Like, this is what fueled our passion. But we weren't thinking in those terms because we're not natural born rioters here. Now, if you have 120 federal agents in a crowd, inciting a crowd, and you're able to show those agents doing things, like those agents were like, anyway, my friend repeated something that someone said, and we don't know if he was a Fed or not, and now she's got a bigger felony. So basically, whenever you have a mob mentality, okay?
I was about to point that out too. Mob mentality drives you to do things you wouldn't normally do.
Correct. It drives you, it takes you down a couple of levels of intelligence. Mob mentality. I read a book about it after this happened because I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
What was that about? Like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I had to read a book all about mob mentality. So you really have a down, you go with the mob. Like if you've got people inciting violence. Now, there wasn't really any violence. Mm-hmm. Like I've got people that were in prison or are in prison now, and they've proven in court that the knife, the policeman, there's all sorts of stuff that needs to come out. So I would say it was a non-violent, peaceful protest, and there were a few violent feds in there who damaged property. And then some of the people who maybe had their mentality lowered at the moment might have done copycat actions. But nobody went there we were like standing out. I've got video, chilling. It's the most beautiful people you've ever seen, like normal. And then whenever you have, and then it was like, okay, yeah, we are mad. They just certified the election. We felt the election was rigged, and I think eventually that's coming out very soon. And so we'll be able to be vindicated, and because the message has been silenced. But what if it was rigged? Then what would you think about what we did? Did we do the right thing or did we not? And then also, so I saw a broken window, okay? I'm out on the Capitol steps looking at a sea of red, white, and blue, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And in my mind, it felt like a set, felt like a movie set. I was like, they want us here. That was in some part of my brain that doesn't come to the surface. Mm-hmm. But looking back, I was thinking, why do they have that there? And just things that were very interesting. And there was no guards or anything.
So you felt like it was staged almost.
I felt like it was staged. Okay. And so I'm looking at the sea of people. I feel like something about it was staged. I felt that like 10 times. Then I turn around and I look at this guy. And we'd already heard, it's a very complex story. We'd already heard in the crowd, there's feds here. Watch out for feds. They're bad. They're going to do things to make us look bad. So you've got that going on. I've never even been to Washington, D.C. And I'm standing on the steps looking at the crowd. And then I see this guy out of the corner of my eye, and he has the look of a Cheshire cat. And I'm like, he's not with us. Or what is he doing? Okay. He had just broken the window I didn't see him, thank God, because had I seen him, I would have gotten a felony or worse. Yeah. I would have gotten worse prison or something bad would happen. Thank God. So I was like, and I looked around at the window and I go, oh my gosh, that's the Capitol window and it's broken.
And did that send you in a totally different place?
I was like, oh my God, this is the Capitol. I was like looking at it. And the curtains were blowing, and I was like, someone was in there. I mean, somebody works there. Like there was a child's drawing, and I was like, this is history. I can't believe what I'm looking at right now. Because I knew I've been in social media coaching and things for years. Mm-hmm. Like I was one of the first people on Twitter, years and years ago.
That was an eye-opening moment for you.
I was like, what the heck? No, it was not just eye-opening. It was like, and then the social media person in me came out. And it said, I had a little demon on this shoulder and a little angel on this shoulder. And it said, take a picture. And I go, no. I go, okay, maybe. And then I had the devil say, but if you want it to go viral, then you need to be in it. Well, when I was thinking viral, I was thinking maybe get 100 likes on my Facebook, viral among my friends.
Yeah.
I did not know we were talking all over the world. I was like, it never would have crossed my mind. I mean, that's how benign the day was. The day was benign. And
You didn't go in with a motive. You went in just to observe and to freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. Well, I didn't even want to go down there. My friends had talked me into going down there.
Right.
But once I did, I'll take full responsibility. I was there for protesting. But just protesting with my phone and just having a good time with my audience. And I never dreamed anything like this. And nobody did. And all of us were pigeonholed in a situation. And so there's things that you can do with media. There's ways you can cut things, and especially if you have actors that are acting, and you know where to place the cameras, and you've got people that are willing or being paid to break windows and cause other people to follow suit, you can take pictures of that and make people really disgusted. Wow. And we're talking a full-on scheme, a full-on smear campaign. There was a purpose to this, and I was a part of a movie I did not know I was in. So did I act the part? Yeah. So anyway, the devil said, well, I can't take that photo. So there was a part of me that said, that second thought about it, should I do it? But then the mob mentality took over, and I asked a guy, but that's how calm it was. I asked a guy, will you take my selfie? I mean, and so I took a selfie standing like this in front of the window. And so that became world news and world history.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's probably the one thing that really, is that the thing that really set the stage for you when it came to the federal court case?
No, they didn't. That was cray-cray. I mean, I'm talking, y'all are going to love when it all comes out. It's going to be amazing to understand what really, really happened. And so as for the court case...
So what was the time period? You go there, you come back, because we saw all this. I'll be honest with you, I didn't follow a lot of it afterwards. It was like headline news, and then there's several people that still like to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean it was a lot of shock value.
But they don't talk about any of the other shock values from other organizations that do worse, 10 times worse to me. Okay, but my question to you is, what was the time period between that incident and then would they come to your door? Did they come knocking on your door? Did they come to your office? What happened there?
Well, basically, Roseanne said it best the other day at the Tucker Carlson event in Fort Worth.
Okay.
She said this was a staged insurrection in order to distract from the fact that they stole the election.
Okay.
So I think everybody's going to find that out eventually. So you're asking what happened. So I'm flying back on my friend's jet, and my phone is ringing. And it's all this media. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to media. I was kind of embarrassed.
Yeah. It
was very humiliating. I mean, it was just like, okay, I can't believe anybody saw that. It was a very odd feeling. And then they decided through this process to use me as like the figurehead of the January 6th thing. So it was Jacob Chansley, but I got more press than anybody else in the whole thing because I've been in social media for years. I already had a radio show on iHeart. I already had, also because, I don't know, but it happened. So then I got attacked by the entire world. So the weight of the world came on my shoulders in this, on Twitter. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, if y'all want to help, oh no. And they're like, send her to prison. Send her to prison. I was like, what? FBI, we found her. Here she is. I'm like, I'm here. They're never going to do anything for.
And here you're a business owner. You're trying to, make a living, and all of this is coming crashing down.
20 years in the business. It's 20 years in business in Dallas with a great reputation. And it's January when my business starts up. You start going. I'm single. I'm totally independent. I don't have anybody supporting me. And I've got thousands of people, and then PayPal cancels me publicly, calls CBS News. We're canceling Jenna Ryan, real estate agent Jenna Ryan, which makes everybody scared of me. And so then the next day, and within 1 hour, it's on CBS, it's on NBC, it's Washington Post, New York Post. Then I'm looking at the news. I'm just like going, my eyes were like, what the? It's like India News, India Times. It's in Philippines.
And this is just within hours.
Within 1 hour. And I was mortified because it was my finances.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a businesswoman. How am I going to sell? The next day after that happened, I was kicked off all social platforms except for Twitter. They kept me on there to make fun of me, I guess. I don't know. But I was kicked off like major websites that, I was just kicked out of everything and canceled. And then meanwhile, my phone is blowing up once every second of someone calling me and saying really mean things to me. And death threats, of course, like death threats like you have never seen in your life. Like,
I'm sitting here hearing you talk about this. I'm like, how are you processing the stress of all this, Jenna?
So, great question. My mother was also on her deathbed. Okay. So, thank God she died before I found out I was going to prison. And the way I dealt with it in the beginning was I thought this is a joke. Like, no, I'm not going, like the FBI is not going to come get me. Y'all are being ridiculous.
Wow.
There's no, because I
you
didn't do
were really
anything.
in denial at that point because
I didn't do anything.
You didn't feel like you had done anything.
No, I
wrong.
hadn't. Like, I had not. Like, I walked in, walked out with a cop. What is wrong with that? That's not illegal. Like,
if it was wrong, he should have arrested you right then.
right. You don't go and get some girl and then take her picture and put a red circle around it and plaster it. But you know what? I have decided part of the way I cope is I can't convince anyone anything.
Right. You know the truth.
I know what I did. I know what I went through, and it's up to the person. I can't prove myself. Mm-hmm. I know who I am. Mm-hmm. And so that's what happened. And everybody will always have their own opinions about what happened, but I know that I didn't do anything. So that's but the only time that I had to admit I did something was whenever I went to the court, because if I didn't say something, they were going to throw me in prison much longer than 60 days. And the fact that they put me in prison for 60 days was just because of a tweet. They were like, it was a complete witch hunt.
What'd you tweet?
I'm not going to go there. I'm going to talk about it.
Okay.
But I was, it just has to do with back and forth, and people were attacking me. And I didn't know, I didn't have a publicist. Yeah. My mom died,
You were going through a lot of trauma. You were spiraling.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things going on in your life.
I don't know how I'd handle
and
any
in
of
that moment, you wrote a tweet that you...
No, I responded to somebody who's saying, you're going to jail. I said, I'm sorry. And everybody had been calling me, you're a racist. You're a white, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I said, I'm sorry, I'm white. But I said it to the guy. So the next day, CNN says, Jenna's not going to prison because she's white. But I had just been told I wasn't going to have to go to prison by my lawyer. And then, so I was like, no, I'm not going to prison. So they just used whatever they could.
Yeah.
And that's the only avenue. And so I didn't have any conservative support. I didn't have any support in terms of the media. And I became world infamous overnight.
So that's a good question, though, because being that you did that, did you have anybody reach out to you from the Republican side, the party, and say, hey?
Absolutely not. Okay. And that's a problem. That's a good thing I need to bring up, because I'm getting to bring up all my stuff. I'm like, no more income tax for self-employed, please. I mean, they're doing everything. It's going to be nice. I'm going to say, if somebody gets attacked by the media, please send them a publicist. Yeah. But the whole thing is nobody wanted to be associated with anybody.
That was, yes, because all of the people that were in Washington that day were villainized.
Correct. And also,
whether you went to the Capitol or not, there were people that just went to his speech and never went to the Capitol. They were also villainized.
And they also were arrested, and they're going to prison right now. You should see them. I know them.
There's a lot of them?
Yes, there's thousands. Every day I would get emails. So-and-so's arrested in Arkansas. So-and-so's arrested in Florida. It's bad. My attorney was like, Jenna, there was a lot of violence there, because that's what the news said. Mm-hmm. And we were creating my defense. And they were like, he goes, we need to pull you out of that. You are the least of all capital offenders, okay, which was true. In fact, I need to bring that up. I was the least of all capital offenders, okay? So that my attorney, that was very important. I didn't know the Fed system, but he did. And he said, we were positioning you as the least of all capital offenders. And all the rest of the stuff, pull you out. So I'm sure, like with Trump and with all of that, they didn't want to be associated with this situation. Mm-hmm. And so, meanwhile, and I mean, nobody knew what to do. Mm-hmm. We were just all watching with our gaping eyes open, like, what is going on?
Do you think Trump being in the House, he's going to sponge everybody's records to make sure that there's a clean slate for them?
Well, you've got people who...
You're ruining lives with these charges.
Like 60% were military. Friend of mine, a military pilot, a pilot. Mm-hmm. He lost his pilot license. While he was going through the trial process, he went to get his inspector license for houses. Well, then he got convicted of a felony. He didn't have weapons. Unbelievable. Just the prison sentences, the times, it's overblown. I can understand giving me a ticket. I would have done it had you thrown me in jail for one night. It would have been worth it. Protests from the 60s, and they would throw you in jail and put everybody in a paddy wagon, and you've done your duty. You've stood up, and and it's more like a Purple Heart than a charge, okay? I stood up for myself. I stood up for my country. I stood up for my rights. So whenever I went to prison, the whole world was demanding I go to prison, and I have proof. So, and nobody would talk to me. Everybody was afraid of me. Everybody was very scared of me. So no one would talk to me. No one would take my call. So I had to change my name to my maiden name, close my company, and function as another person.
Wow.
Okay. And that was horrible. And I was just like, oh my God, this is horrific. And then as soon as the media found out that I did that, they wrote articles, oh, she's going by Jennifer Rogers. And they really wanted to take my business. And there were thousands of...
They wanted to destroy you.
There were thousands of people who wrote the Texas Department of Real Estate, Texas Real Estate Commission.
Trying to take your license.
We want her license. She should not be able to practice real estate. They were so mad I could make a living. Because I just changed my name, and I'm just like, the way I make my living is by cold calling, and my network would not speak to me. So... because they were afraid of me. People tell me, like, now, they're like, I was literally afraid of you.
Well, it makes you wonder, though, were they afraid of you, or they were afraid of what would happen to them knowing that they supported you?
That's what I mean.
Okay.
I have people now.
They didn't want to have their name associated with their...
They didn't want to be cancel cultured either.
That's what I mean by afraid.
Yeah.
And some of them, no, nobody was afraid of me personally.
Well, but some people will do that. They just not physically afraid, but they'll... And that's what we were just saying. They'll disassociate because of the fear of retribution, because they're friends with you, that kind of thing. Which that had to have been so hard for you.
Yeah, it was very difficult. I did have a lot of people that would come to me and say, we're behind you. We just can't tell you. We're behind you.
So I'd be like, oh.
And there comes we get back to the freedom of speech, that people shouldn't be afraid to support somebody going through a rough time.
Right. But I was being canceled from the banking system.
Yeah.
And they were making it very clear. And they used me as an example. You had Shelley Luther, who was the hairdresser who went to jail for, and now she just ran for Texas district. She's a senator or, I don't know, Congress. So they didn't want another Shelley Luther out of this. They didn't want that. They didn't want me to become a conservative hero. They had to smear my name in the mud to make sure that I was completely silenced. And anyone that tried to stand up knew that if you do that, you're going to have some serious consequences. Your life, your livelihood. It's a
very traumatic event, what you've been through. How are you getting to the other side of it? How have you kept your mental health in check? What challenges have you been through this whole situation, and how have you found the wherewithal to keep going?
Okay, and so I am a childhood trauma survivor. So I have been through significant trauma my whole life. Yeah. Been through significant trauma, complex trauma. And then I've also done a ton of therapy and a ton of inner healing and inner work. So what I did was I remember thinking to myself, and I have faith in God. The Lord helped me. Like, I have such an understanding of God's grace and how if people are coming against you like this, it's all going to come back. Like, this is for a reason. And I was like, oh my gosh, what reason is this? But I knew it had to be a big reason. because this was a big ordeal. So through the process, I remember going, I can't believe this is happening. And I would be like, but you know what? The healing that I've experienced from my situation, my mental health, the healing that I've experienced, this is nothing. All this trauma being all over the media, all of these horrible things, these lies, is nothing compared to being harmed as a child and overcoming that. Wow. Once you can overcome that, once you can experience the healing and release and the joy of knowing who you really are, and not being afraid, and dealing with shame and feeling your feelings and all of the things that you have to do to become an actualized person, the joy that you get in going through the healing process is so strong that it carries you through and helps you to be resilient, even in crazy, crazy situations. So nothing was as bad. So every time I would think this is horrible, I just look back and go, look what you've done. We've come out of the hell.
You used a positive comparison, which is a skill in working through trauma.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1,000 positive comparisons. Yes, it was a lot. And a lot of times I would break, and, I didn't have a lot of things that someone who might have been more supported would have had. So when you go through trauma in your childhood, you are not able to get the support. You don't know where to get it. You don't have boundaries.
You're a child.
You're a child.
Yeah. And when you don't have someone advocating for you.
You don't have, it's you against the world.
Yeah.
And all I had was, for example, I allowed people to come into my life. Like looking back, someone reached out to me recently that I had allowed this lady, because I'm all, everywhere, and you become like a lightning rod for all sorts of people. I didn't have any boundaries. All I knew is I was by myself. And I don't care if the Wicked Witch of the West came into I would probably give her a hug, because I was in bad shape. My mom was passing.
You were very alone, very isolated.
Very isolated, like complete isolation. And so, and then my mom, I already had stuff going on with all that. There's already so much healing and so much stuff. And it was just, God carried me through. But I allowed people in that, since that time, how it's been 4 years. So since that time, I'm like, I would never, now I'm learning more about boundaries. Every day I learn more about boundaries. Every single day. And, I'm middle age, and I'm still learning about how to set boundaries and how to keep my privacy and how to keep the right people, let the right people in and keep the right people out, and how to feel okay being in isolation. Because when you are someone who's gone through trauma and you don't have the bonding capability of a adult per se, then you're going to have some time in isolation, and you have to learn that it's okay to be by yourself, because it's better to be by yourself and handle things on your own than to put yourself in harm's way with someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart. So it's very, very difficult. That's hard.
That is really hard.
But you can do it. It is possible.
But I think that's a great message to send to people, and I feel like it's definitely, I don't know that you would have made it through this if you didn't have those building blocks. I don't know that you would have.
Well, what would I do? You're talking about other people that they're not where you're at now.
They're not where you're at.
They've made decisions that may have ended their lives. Maybe those are the people that didn't go through that trauma, that didn't know, weren't prepared like you are. And then you think about, I'm just hearing you talk, and I'm thinking all the isolation stuff, and then, literally your saving grace was probably what you went through as a child.
I know,
right?
because I think it's kept you from spiraling to a very deep, dark place.
It made you tougher, more resilient, though you didn't expect this outcome. But then I start thinking about, I'm sitting here hearing you talk, and I'm thinking about all these other people that probably didn't go through that kind of trauma. They don't have that resilience built up. They weren't ready for the backlash that they got, and it caused them to not know how to handle it.
The healing, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. The healing that I got from seeking healing, okay, from reading the books, doing the work, going to therapy, I treated healing like a full-time job. Mm-hmm. for many years, 10 years. I couldn't get in a relationship. I couldn't be in a healthy relationship at all. It would not happen. I couldn't. I couldn't even be in my own body. It was very difficult. Reading all the books, doing all the things, I had such a sense of peace and joy within my heart that no one could ever take from me. So no matter what happened to me, I was able to handle. And I was able to look at it and almost be like, okay, well, once you have that sense of peace and well-being and you know that you belong and you know that you're not bad. Now, had I been filled with shame, had I been not where I was,
It's been a different story.
I would have probably, you know, I don't know. The point is that I have such a joy, and I want to let your audience know what it feels like to go through healing and to come out on the other side is the most amazing, amazing release. And so you're going through pain after pain after pain because you have to dig through a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Okay. And it feels like you're never going to get to the end. And you're like,
Exhausting.
You're like,
it's scary.
Like this pain is like, there's more pain. I just
Yeah.
dealt with this pain. Now I've got some more pain. You're telling me I have to do some more pain? Please. I don't want to do any more pain. It's hardcore. But you keep doing the pain. You keep feeling the feelings. You keep doing the work. Just trust me. I broke through.
Yeah.
I broke through the wall. So that's when all this stuff happened. And so energetically, it's kind of interesting if you think about, you know, what's on the inside, it manifests on the outside, which it does.
We talked about you're getting all these phone calls, but how'd they actually show up to your house? Or did they show up to your house?
How did the policemen?
How'd that happen?
Oh, God.
Did you have to turn yourself in? I mean, I've had people in neighboring communities that had literally their whole house was raided, helicopters from what happened.
I've really blacked this out. I'm just kidding. So I am writing a book. It's called Storming the Capitol, and it's going to come out as soon as I get my pardon. So this is in the book, and it's a great story. And so y'all have to get my book when it comes out. Anyway, I'm getting on Twitter, and I'm thinking nothing's going to happen. But part of me is like, what if something does happen? This is crazy. And I think I was one of the first arrested on January 13th, 2021. Someone called me and said, meet me at the police office, at the police station. Someone calls me up because I think it had made the news that I was going to jail. So an attorney that I'd used before on a defamation case 10 years ago where I won, he calls, he goes, do you need an attorney? And I said, yes, I do. And so within minutes, an attorney called. It was because it was so public. Mm-hmm. So someone called and he goes, I go, they want me to go to the jail. He goes, don't do it. He goes, leave your house right now. He goes, I'm calling the district attorney or whatever the person's name is, U.S. attorney, and I'm going to get us scheduled for a time. So they ended up scheduling a time for me to go very peacefully. I went, turned myself in. I didn't even know I was turning myself in, but that's what I found out afterwards. Meanwhile, I wasn't allowed to go home, so I went to, he goes, go to the mall, buy some clothes. So I went to the place, bought all clothes, hose, shoes. I was ready for a news conference because I was all over the media, and I was like, okay.
Right.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So then I had to go get my hair blown out from a blowout bar. I mean, I was like going, it was crazy. You should have seen me. I was driving like this, like somebody was behind me in the parking lot, and they were like, "You're a lady." I was like, it was crazy. I mean, I felt like I was in a movie. I told the lady at Black Market White House, I go, the FBI, I think they're out there. And then I drove by my house before I went to the store, and there was an FBI agent. And you guys, I don't have any weapons. I did have a gun, but I put it in my pantry because I never used it, and I didn't have bullets. I just bought a gun because I wanted to exercise my right. But I'm like very, very squeaky clean.
Yeah.
I don't do bad things. I hadn't had a speeding ticket in 10 years. And
I can't say that, so.
I don't even
every
speed.
She's got a heavy foot. Oh, my gosh. I'm like you, Jenna. I've had one ticket in my life. Thank you.
Well, I got a bunch, and then I decided, no.
Tired of paying them fines.
Yeah, I learned
Not
my
Carla.
lesson.
I'm on that road right now. I'm
Literally.
couple of months free of speeding tickets.
2 tickets, and she had to get me on the phone with her husband. I know we're side dealing, but get on the phone with her husband and say, Brandy, you got to tell my husband that it wasn't my fault.
Well, life will teach you. You can either learn from the ticket or learn from the ticket, because eventually you will learn.
Yeah.
So my house was raided, and then when I got home from prison, the
They
next
searched
day,
your house.
yeah, and they had taken my phones, my computers, and my MAGA hat.
Really?
Phones, computer, MAGA hat. Do you think that became a headline? No. Real estate agent, Jenna Ryan terrorist gets la. So nothing that, I mean, you don't take someone's MAGA hat. That's just such a, So they treated us like terrorists. I was on a terrorist list. I was treated like a terrorist. But anyway, I was released that day. My attorney got me released that day, thank God. And that was nice. And everybody was really mad. They were so mad I got released. And they're like, you deserve much more time in prison. But they didn't see what I did based upon how they would juxtapose my face or my image with these violent photos. It made me look like I was Ayatollah.
Part of the destruction that you were part of.
Correct. Made me look like literal. And so I now see behind the curtain. And I see when I watch the news.
How things were manipulated.
I see how big stories are created. It's all a show. It's like a movie. And so that's what I was in, is the movie. And now I know all about the media and all about how they work. And I'm very disappointed, due to the way the articles would come out, and they would all be the same article with different words and things. So I kind of know how the back works. So that's kind of cool to know, but it was a pain. So that's how, that was just a complete, and then the feds were outside my house in a black van, and they had mowed down some trees so they could see my front door. So I had I'm Jenna Ryan, and I've got a feds outside, and
you have no violent criminal past.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm just a real estate agent trying to survive. My mom passed in July. That was a lot. That was a whole, we were like super duper close. This is not just any mother-daughter relationship.
Were you even able to process the loss of your mom with everything you're going through?
Well, that is a great question to answer here in this format, because I had already grieved the loss of my mom during the healing phase. Okay? So when my mom passed, it wasn't as heavy as it would be for an ordinary person who didn't already go through so much healing. Okay? So I had 10 years of therapy and healing, of mourning and grief. And I told her that. I said, Mom, I've already, that's how close we were. Like, I told her, I could tell her anything and she would understand. And it was this beautiful relationship, but it was very complex and very traumatic things happened. In my healing process, what I had to end up doing in order to self-actualize is I had to look at the relationship in a new way. So I had to detach.
Got it.
So when you detach, like I didn't have a choice. So it's not an evil thing. Y'all know this, you're a therapist.
No, it's healthy.
I had to completely detach. And it was hard, and I went through all that. It was very difficult to detach from my mother, whom I adored. We were completely one clump. So I had detached. So whenever she passed, I'd already detached. And I'd already had support.
You're preparing for it.
Yeah.
I already had mental health support for this. So I was able to do it and be really strong about it. But it was still an overwhelming experience not to have her, because she was the only support I had.
Yeah.
So even to this day, like, every day I get stronger, but it's just learning to walk on your own 2 feet and not rely on her. Like, I have to constantly remind myself that I can do this on my own, that I don't need anybody's approval, that I've got this. There's just all this healing that has to be done. So as far as the grief for me was 10 years before I'm talking deep depression and barely been able to walk some days of extreme pain. But coming out on the other side of the extreme pain, emotional pain, after I went through it all, then I was free. I was set free. So it was this joy. And I was like, oh, so this is what's on the other side of that pain. This is awesome. I really like this.
I love your point there because I want the audience to understand that no matter what we're going through and we keep hitting that wall of pain.
Yes.
There's so much on the other side of it that you got to get to.
And it's temporary.
Yes.
I say temporary. 10 years of pain is not temporary.
No.
But in the grand scheme of your life.
Scheme, it is temporary. And when you get that feeling of the release, anything that comes ahead of you from that moment on that's going to be hard, there's a release in sight.
Correct.
So, that's probably why you process things the way you did so well. I know the traumatic event as a child. I know anything you go through as a child as you get older, it'll either make or break you.
Correct.
And I think it definitely made you gave Jenna the resilience she needed to get through this horrible event that you've had to go through, girl.
That's just hard even thinking that I would be resilient because I have
You
gone
are
through
resilient.
so much.
I don't care what anybody says.
that
This chick is resilient.
She's a tough
If,
cookie.
if you
for
put
sure.
that with my name, like that to me would be a miracle.
Well, it's a
because
miracle then,
it's not.
because-
It's because I had to work so hard. So so you just keep hitting up against the pain, and I would have little breakthroughs. And the breakthrough, I would remind myself, okay, I feel this much better. What if I could get just this much better, and then this much better? Okay, then after all the pain and the shame was dealt with, then I had to come into dealing with the negative core beliefs, which was a beating.
Oh, yes. Those are hard to get through. It takes a lot of time to untwist those things.
And it's very long and very twisted, like you say, and then dealing with those negative core beliefs, and then doing all that work while all this is happening.
Learning how to trust.
I need help with that one. Let's sign up.
Her therapist is still working on that.
Yeah, that's not done yet. But I am at a good place for whatever's next. And I'm also, that's probably where I am, learning how to trust.
Jenna, tell us what you've done with this experience. How are you using it right now to rebuild?
So I just have a message, that everything I've been through, I believe I've gone through for a reason to help others. And not because I feel like I need to be useful, but because I'm just passionate. Because I know if somebody had told me when I was in the middle of that, feeling like, why am I doing this? If I had somebody that could give me a little bit of hope, it might have gotten me down the road a little farther. So I'm passionate about that message. And I know some things now that I had, everybody likes to share what they know. And so now I'm a performer per se, or creator. So I like to create content like this podcast. I like to write. And so right now I just happen to be, on the world stage of politics. And I didn't ask for this thug life. It found me because I was passionate about rights. I went to the Capitol, and then now here I find myself. And so I'm, getting millions of views on TikTok at Real Jenna Ryan. Come follow me, everybody. If you like politics. And I believe that I am building a platform for a message. I feel I have a seed, I have a message, like a purpose, a life purpose. And I believe that all of these things that have happened are to get out this message. I don't know if that's crazy, but I feel it with everything within me. So it can't be crazy if you feel it that strongly.
For me, I think it's a play, and it's still writing itself, I think.
Correct.
And I think
agree.
as you begin to process everything, if things start to come out more, you're going to know what that final play is going to be.
Correct.
And just the fact that you're able to talk openly about the stress it's put on your life. But I also think it's important to let people know that you had a lot that you went through earlier in life that helped you process that through counseling, through all that stuff. So when you're talking to other people that may not have had the opportunity to go through that, I can tell you right now, had I not been able to process a lot of things that I went through in life, I probably would have checked out a long time ago. Bottom line, I'm just being straight up honest because I wouldn't have known how to do it. I know going through those situations made me a lot more resilient. And that's why you're at where you're at. And I love the fact that you're using the platform that you're using now, not to tell people. You're literally telling people you're going to go through this.
Well, the platform that got her in trouble is the platform that's going to save her.
Yeah. I love it, though.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You
It's such a
could have chosen,
turnaround.
Jenna, really easily. You could have chosen to
get off everything and
to
just
hate.
hide.
You could have chosen to be resentful. You could have chosen to a lot of things. But you've chosen. It's a choice.
Okay.
You've chosen to make something positive out of this.
And I want the audience to know that they feel like all of from January 6th was full of hate. But I want you to know if you get to know this woman, there's no hate. I don't feel hate in her.
No, she was on a mission to voice her voice.
Yes.
Which everyone has the right to do.
And I think there's a big push for that right now is because of all of these things that have happened over the last 10 years, there is a push to really pull in that freedom of speech.
Well, and you and I talked about
people
this.
to be able to have that
talked about this
and
not
not
too
have
long
to
ago.
worry about what's going to happen to them if they speak their voice.
Right.
You know what?
What?
This is all a microcosm or a macrocosm. I don't know the word.
We'll look it up later
can't
on
help you on
Webster's.
any of the
Look it up. This is all some sort of, okay, this is what. So as a collective, as a people, it's just like the healing process. If you want to heal, you have to become aware. You can't hide. You have to become aware of what you are doing and what you're feeling. Then you have to feel the feelings, whether you like it or not. Okay? People all have the right to speak. We have to let each person speak in the family. We don't have a scapegoat, a golden child. We need people to respect one another's voice. Respect the voice of others. See the truth. Don't censor the truth. Open up to the truth, even if you don't like it. What if you're wrong? What if the people were just normal people? What if the media has tricked you? What if I'm wrong? What if, I did a bad thing? Maybe there's somewhere in the middle. But whatever the case may be, instead of this black and white polarities.
Life is not black and white.
No. There's a lot of in between, a lot of gray.
A lot of gray.
So it's like that's what we're calling for. I mean, that we've got basically what I think they're doing, where I think this is heading, is to the truth, is to pull out the truth, good, bad, different, ugly. Look at, clean out the closet.
How do we fix this for the future?
That's what they're doing.
Whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, how do we make this a learning experience that helps people thrive in the future? Not afraid to show their voice, not afraid to do what they need to do. But because literally it's scary thinking that your voice could be shut down.
Well, I think that's the purpose of history, is for us to learn.
Right.
This is a historical moment.
We try to get rid of history. We already talked about that.
Right. But we can't, because history is there for us to learn from, so we don't
Not to
repeat the
it.
same
That's
mistakes. And so I feel like we don't want to shut down history.
No.
Right.
We don't. This is a historical event. The past 3 elections have been historical events, like elections like you've never seen before.
Right.
So I think all of this is a part of history, and we have to grow and learn from it. I feel like that's the important part.
You're
if we shut it down, we can't learn from it.
Right. And so things are going to get really interesting, and there's going to be all sorts of movements for you to attach yourself to. And I would just say, the whole thing is seeking truth. So that's what I did in my healing journey. It was horrible to go to those places. It was horrible to open the closet. It was horrible to see what was in there, because I was so afraid that if I were to see it, that it would mean I was horrible, or it would hurt me, or I would be annihilated, whatever. But I opened the door. I bravely opened the door, and I opened the door of my own soul and my own heart, and I looked at everything, and I go, maybe you're not so bad. Maybe you're not. Oh, I thought you were so bad. So this, in the same way with our society, I think we have to open up and allow everyone to speak and allow everyone to exist. And I have empathy. I have empathy for every kind of, I'm thinking of different people in my mind. I'm thinking of a people group that, I want to unite with. I don't want to be polar opposite too. I want everyone to feel loved. I want everyone to feel included. And so that's kind of my thought. It's not like some staunch, but I still want the truth. And however we have to get to the truth, we need to get down to we need to clean out our closet of our country and of history and the world.
Yeah, and I've always said seek to understand, seek to be understood. And I think if we can get to that level of understanding each other's differences, and you don't have to like them, but being able to have, therapists say the words, this word, but like being able to say, okay, I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to appreciate where you stand. I don't have to agree on it.
But I think there's some different opinions come because we all have a different walk in life. And I think what happens is we're trying to put people in this mold that we must think the same way.
And if you don't,
we must react the same way. But we can't, because your experience is different than my experience. Your walk is different than my walk. I mean, we all have different influences in our life.
However, if you have people lying to you, if you have people that are providing you with false information and false data, you're not going to be able to make decisions that are appropriate. So if I believed that I was worthless, then I wasn't able to function in life in the way that I can function today when I know my worth.
Right.
I wasn't able to set boundaries. I didn't know I was worthy of boundaries, or I could. So in the same way, if we allow censorship and gaslighting or any kind of propaganda, if we accept government propaganda and we do not demand free and fair press, our First Amendment right, if we don't demand that they stop giving us one story in all the mainstream media, if we don't start making demands that we get more fair information, we're not going to be able to make truthful decisions about who we are as a people. You're going to have some people believing lies and operating on those lies.
They already do every day. Not just politics and everything we see right now, because they want to know how many followers they can get, how many likes they can get. Yeah. It's affecting our youth. I can't imagine our kids what they're going to have to grow up with.
The social media, you think of okay, there's some benefits, but there's so much harm from it, that
it's like she said,
we're just uncovering these, and it's still a pretty new concept, social media, in the grand scheme of things, but we're starting to see it unravel in ways that we got to act quickly before it can continues to destroy us.
Before even having this conversation with Jenna, if I was to Google her and everything I've read, it's not a good light it shines.
No, it does not shine a good light.
It's false.
But then sitting down with you and hearing,
exactly.
You're a me and Carla, this could have easily happened to any of us.
Right.
Any of us, just for the fact that you had a love for your country.
And I just did my duty. And I'm not trying to be noble. I'm not even trying. I'm not trying to get any kudos. I'm talking, it was as strange.
Oh, you did time for it, though.
I did some time. Did 60 whole days. And
how was that? I got to get into that.
Well,
was orange your new color?
Yeah,
I was orange the new black.
Yeah, that was traumatic. They wanted to humiliate me, and orange was it. No, it was horrible.
Orange, she looks at her chair.
No, she's like, jeez, I feel like I'm back in
prison. No, they did literally have. They didn't have orange, but
dang it.
But it was interesting. They kept me, in one prison. And there's so many arguments. Like, I could say something on this, and I don't know if it's still the same as it used to be, but if you go to any old interviews I've ever done, there's all these people, they have these opinions, and they're just completely, like, opposite of what happened. They have their idea because the media told them. But, they kept me in one room for 60 days. It was freezing, and they starved us and stuff. So it was horrible. And they made me listen to...
So you weren't in Gen Pop?
They would not let me go to Jenna. They did not want Jenna Ryan, that name, that profile, public profile, go because
they caused prison riots.
No, it was a prison where there was no bars, so you could just walk out.
Oh,
but you would catch a charge
if you walked out.
Yeah, I learned all this lingo. Catch charge.
This is interesting. Like, you didn't have fences with barbed wire at the top.
You didn't have a bar or anything, but if you walked out, you get charged.
So this is white collar crime for white collar criminals. Federal.
You're federal.
It's prison camp.
Okay.
So normally it's more like a college campus. However, because of COVID, they have taken away even all the rights of prisoners. And so I am very much into prison reform now after I did that.
See, another thing that
avenue.
Girl,
yeah.
this is not a mistake for you, sister.
Yeah.
I'm serious when I say that. This was not a mistake for you. What you just said was huge.
All the J6 people, we are going to be so into prison reform. So they
Which
locked
needs
us
to happen
down.
anyway. Prison reform needs
Oh
to
my
happen. And
gosh.
there's lots of organizations really working on this. So it's something.
I'm just talking about day-to-day life of prisoners.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just because you have COVID doesn't mean you take every single human right away. And they just use it as a blanket excuse for taking all the rights of people away. And so, you know, Steve Bannon, there's a lot of people have been, I mean, I just think of all my comrades who've gone to prison, and we've got some real beef that's going to be brought up that, you know, we're going to have to fix that. And we're going to have the ability to do that right now, which is exciting.
You got to utilize it while you can, girl.
We got, you know, they're about to revamp the whole entire government. They're going to take out the Fed. You can cut that out, but take out the Fed, taxes, utopia.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What do you want people to walk away with?
Yeah.
Let's give them their closing straight to the cameras. What are you going to tell people?
I'm going to tell people to seek the truth, know that there are people that are going to lie to you, and don't believe them on face value. Always fact check. Always trust your gut about a person and get to know a person, and don't believe what other people tell you. And always work on your healing. Keep healing. It will pay off.
And I also want the audience to know that one thing that was very consistent in Jenna's story is her willingness and ability to seek help from a mental health professional when she knew things weren't right. And so I want to really encourage all of you out there, if something feels off in you and you're needing to get to the bottom of it or get some healing, please find your way to a therapist, find your way to a mental health professional, and seek that help.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.